Giant Orange Records.
Welcome to another Giant Orange Records video. 2023 is the year that I started this channel. I probably acquired more records this year due to certain circumstances than any year ever before. And I probably also sold more records this year due to circumstances that just kind of made things available. So I'm going to go through my top favorite finds of this year, and it's quite a hefty list. Start off with Demian's self-titled record from 1971. Now these guys look like they're having a pretty good time. Here, love the artwork on this. It's like very heavy guitar rock, very psychedelic, early 70s kind of psychedelic sound. These guys were in a band called Bubble Puppy in the late 60s out of, I believe, Houston, Texas area. But due to contractual obligations, they changed their name to leave their first record label, which was International Artists, also home to the 13th Floor Elevators. Anyway, these guys opened up for Steppenwolf, and it's really, really good stuff. The guitar playing is on par with Lynyrd Skynyrd guitar playing, but a tad more psychedelic. One of my other absolute favorite records from 2023 is this We the People compilation. They were a garage rock band out of the Orlando, Florida area in the 1960s, so it's kind of near and dear to me. This is a mono pressing on Orange. It's Sundazed Records. Now, this band never put out a proper album in the 1960s, but this is a compilation of most of their singles, and it is good stuff. It was top-tier garage rock. It's called We the People, Too Much Noise. Sundazed put it out, and everything Sundazed puts out is pretty darn good. 3 o'clock Merrian Webster time. Well, side 1 is by a band called the Lemon Fog. Side 2 is by a band called the Nomads. And I believe both of these bands were also from the Houston, Texas area, or something like that. They were late 60s, 66 to 67, 68 or so. It's a perfect mix of garage rock and psychedelic rock. Some beautiful melodies. Lemon Fog's a little bit more on kind of maybe almost the Zombies kind of side. And then the Nomads are a little bit harder rock and a little bit more like Arthur Lee and Love. Excellent stuff. I love this. It's on Orbit Records. Came out in the early 80s. The Beatles, Revolver. See that? Mono. Parlophone. Wow! Such a good sounding record. I've been coveting this record for the longest time. Finally found it in 2023 at my boys at Sounds Good Music had it. They also had this Odeon pressing of Rubber Soul. Been looking for the mono Beatles, especially the early stuff or mid stuff. Odeon, this one was printed in Lima, Peru. It is such a loud pressing, and it's been said of the Odeon pressings that you could run them over with a bus, and these records would still play just fine. I love this. It's so good. So I had a copy of Pet Sounds. It's actually the exact same pressing, but on my Goodwill thrift store version from a long, long time ago, LA, California. God only knows that had a huge scratch on it. So I found this one. Also, it sounds good this year. I saw the movie Love and Mercy this fall. Kind of a story of two eras of Brian Wilson's life. And I'd kind of slowly been getting back into Pet Sounds. A record collector's journey is you need to get more and more obscure records all the time, right? But then, you kind of forget how good the classics are, and it's ironic how sometimes the more obscure, not so good always. Records cost more than the classics because they're not so collectible, but anyway, I've really reconnected with this record thanks to Love and Mercy and a couple other reasons. Like, I used to be in a band that sounded a lot like the Beach Boys, and I kind of got sick of hearing them, but I've distanced myself enough from that now that I can re-appreciate the genius of Brad Wilson. The 13th Floor Elevators, psychedelic sound in mono from Sundazed. Love this pressing, love this album. And while we're on that topic, here's the Radar stereo version of the psychedelic sounds of the 13th Floor Elevators from Greece in 1978. I played this record so many times this year, it's not even funny. These are the two best sounding copies that are affordable that I have. You have to think that an original first or second press is going to set you back anywhere from $400 to $800, and those copies all tend to be trashed. This you can get for like $40 on a good day on the internet. You got to keep your eyes peeled, but if you do, you can find it out there. So I went to a major yard sale in January this year of this lady selling off her dad's record collection. He was a total record collector like all of us. I'd had the Byrds Mr. Tambourine Man before, but it was a reissue in stereo. This is an original mono pressing. It sounds so darn good. So if you want to look at the difference between the mono and stereos, gold versus red, mono, stereo, mono, stereo. A lot of these mid-60s records sound better in mono to my ears because they kind of spent more time getting those pressings ready for the radio. Also, the Byrds, 5D, Fifth Dimension, first press, mono. Oh, I found an original pressing of the Seeds' self-titled debut from 1966. Killer record. Need I say more? This might be the best garage rock album ever from the 60s, or it's definitely high in the running. Os Mutantes. Me and my dad and my son got to see them earlier this year in Jacksonville at the Winterland 5 Festival. This is a reissue. Sounds great. The Brazilians make such great psychedelic rock. This one, I believe, came out in 1968. But good luck. You might have to go to South America to find an OG pressing of this one. And while we're speaking about international groups, Los Sabandenos Cantan Hispanoamerica, Volume 1. This record, recorded in the Canary Islands. Beautiful, beautiful music. It's got that floppy European record thing. I think there's something like 28 people in this band, and there's like 12 people who just plain sing. So it's very impressive world record, very like Spanish folk music. I paid like $3 for this. Great, great find. Tomorrow. This is a, I don't know what year this reissue is from. I think it's an American one. Their self-titled debut. This features guitarist Steve Howe, who was, got famous in the band Yes. And Keith West sang and wrote most of the songs here. Twink played drums here. Very good stuff, very like psychedelic English rock from 67, 68. I believe this record was recorded in 1967, but in the infinite wisdom of their record label, they shelved the album for over a year before releasing it, and I think some of the momentum had kind of died off, but My White Bicycle is on here. Great psychedelic rock. Speaking of which, more English psychedelic rock, Spacemen 3, some kind of a reissue of the perfect prescription. This is Sonic Boom, Pete Kemper, and Jason Pierce, who went on to form Spiritualized later on. Very like droney 80s indie psych rock from England. Good stuff. And oh man, David Bowie, Hunky Dory. This is one of my favorite David Bowie albums. I love this era of David Bowie. I'm still stunned that I found this. And while we're on the Bowie trip, Ziggy, Stardust, and the Spiders from Mars, another RCA pressing of this one. If you haven't heard this, listen to it. Stop what you're doing and go listen to this. While we're dealing with out there kind of music, The Residents, Meet the Residents self-titled debut. This is actually a second pressing. The first press looks sort of like Meet the Beatles, except a first press will set you back like $500, and a second press will set you back like $30. It's more like art than music. It's kind of like anti-music in a way. If you get it, you get it. If you don't, you don't. It's really kind of hard to explain. This is one of the first records I found this year, was Chad and Jeremy's The Ark. I love this record. It's definitely like a very post-Sgt. Pepper record. Painted Dayglow Smile. One of the greatest psych rock songs ever. And Paxton Quigley is on here as well. The Emancipation of Mr. X. Very like folk pop with a Sgt. Pepper treatment to it. So the Beach Boys, Smiley Smile. We all know that Smile didn't happen for whatever reasons, but such a wild record. It has good vibrations, which might be one of the most produced pop songs of all time, and also one of the absolutely greatest pop songs of all time, combining symphonic rock with kind of surf rock, psychedelic rock. And then it has all these home recorded songs on here. Quite a contrast, but absolutely love that. It's a very indie rock record in that way. Whereas like, I don't think there were too many producers involved. It was just kind of like your parents left for the weekend and the Beach Boys in 1967 were like, yeah, let's go record an album. This was a band called Morning. Absolutely love this. It's like early 70s psychedelic folk rock. Quite an incredible gatefold. Man, it was one of those records I thought I would never actually find. And then I did. At Sounds Good Music, of all places. They've got some pretty incredible stuff there. I've kind of become good friends with those guys this year. We geek out on this sort of stuff. Nancy and Lee, I finally got a clean copy of this at that yard sale earlier this year. What a weird record. What a great weird record. As far as duets go, between Lee Hazelwood's super deep voice and Nancy Sinatra's like super bubbly like female voice. Some Velvet Morning. When I'm straight, I'm gonna open up the gate. Yeah, that's all you need to know about this. If you see this and it's not warped and it's not beat to hell, pick it up. Very 60s California weirdo kind of thing. The Weeds. This was Fred Cole's band. Their manager changed their name to the Lollipop, Poppe, Shop, Oppe, because the Weeds was too similar to the Seeds. And apparently the same guy managed both bands. This one came with 2 bonus singles. It's been anthologized on some garage rock comps, but Fred Cole ended up being in a band called Dead Moon in the 80s. But hey, this is good too. It's like if Dead Moon, the 60s version of Dead Moon is the Weeds, aka the Lollipop Shop. The Kinks, kind of Kinks, in mono, Pie. This is a 1980 reissue. Good stuff. Like, if you have any doubt that Ray Davies as a young man was a great songwriter, just put this on. The West Coast Pop Art Experimental Band Part 1. Now, I have an original stereo issue of this. It's kind of beat to hell. Well, Jackpot Records put out a mono version, and I think this has been the first and only mono reissue on orange. A giant orange record, if you will. And Part 1, not to be confused with Volume 1. Now, this is totally a bootleg of their first, pre-first album, maybe. There's a lot of covers on here. Something You Got, Louie Louie, You Really Got Me. But they also do I Won't Hurt You. There's a great song called Insanity on here. If you can find this, if you are already a fan of the West Coast Pop Art Experimental Band, try to dig this one up. If you're not already a fan, start with this one. Found this record called The Frost, rock and roll music. Like half of these songs were recorded live at the Grandy Ballroom in Detroit, Michigan. It's on Vanguard Records, like very like power pop, psychedelic, prog. I don't know, it's I enjoyed this record. The Caravelles, You Don't Have to Be a Baby to Cry. Now this is a very like sweet female duo from the very early 60s on Smash Records. Very sweet harmonies, think like American Graffiti style music, but like I'm kind of a sucker for that kind of thing. It's so nice and so sweet, and kind of surfy too. The Bonzo Dog Band, Tadpoles. I found this at a record shop called Jesse Carl Vinyl, which is over in Lakeland, Florida. Quite an interesting record shop. A lot of great titles I picked up from there. 1969 press. They put the grading on there, VG. This has Tubas in the Moonlight and Hunting Tigers Out in India, as well as Shirt. Like, think of the Monty Python of British psychedelic jazz rock, and you will get the Bonzo Dog Band. Nektar. I also got this at that yard sale in January. It's like early 70s British prog rock. I'd say if you like Pink Floyd or Yes, you'd probably like this. And maybe if you like music in general, it's a little bit out there, you'd probably like this. And then there's a Trout mask replica by Captain Beefheart. I can't say I've made it past side 1 on this double LP since I've had it. If you're tired of everything you're listening to and you want something extraordinarily challenging to listen to, there is always Trout Mask Replica. The Plastic Cloud. This was a Canadian psychedelic rock band. Kind of garagey, kind of psychedelic. This is like a reissue. 8 songs. Yeah, trippy stuff. And then we get Relatively Clean Rivers. This was kind of officially, unofficially reissued in 2023, 22 maybe. My record shop had it in late 2023. Yeah, like Jeff Tweedy mentioned this in some interview. I'd say if you like Wilco and the Grateful Dead, if the Grateful Dead had more fuzz guitar, it would sound kind of like this, and I kind of love fuzz guitar. One of my more recent finds was the Bevis Frond Marshland. Whoa, this is some trippy psychedelic music. I think it came out in about the late 80s, 87 or so. Definitely worth checking out. Again, it kind of meets the Residents and Hendrix guitar style, but Also some of that like Olivia Tremor Control weirdness. Apparently Sonic Youth and Dinosaur Jr. were fans of this band. The Yellow Payges, man. This is some of the craziest garage rock I've ever heard. It's very fuzzed out, psychedelic garage rock. Oh man, Pebbles, Volume 18, European garage rock. The continent lashes back. Some of these singles by the Slaves, they were an Austrian band, which is the country that my mom was born in and grew up in, by the way. I think the Slaves were from Vienna. If you can find their 45s, they're worth like $900. But you can get this compilation for a whole hell of a lot less. And, you know, I love the Pebbles stuff. And there's a lot of other good stuff on here. Check it out if you want to get a flavor of the European garage rock. Baubles, Volume 1. There is a song on here by Meryl Frankhauser in the HMS Bounty, Things Going Round My Mind. It's so good. To get that album would cost a lot of money. To get this album don't cost as much, and I get one of the songs I like from it. I mean, I want to get that album one day. The Eyes of the Beacon Street Union. Good stuff. Kind of reminded me a little bit of the West Coast pop art experimental band. They're not quite on that level, but pretty out there stuff. Oh, I picked up a reissue of Nick Drake's Pink Moon. What a great record. Like a very acoustic, folky record. Nick Drake was known for using these kind of bizarre guitar tunings. Like, nobody else used guitar tunings like Nick Drake, and he's very, very whispery and soft-spoken in his delivery. And, of course, Pink Floyd's Saucer Full of Secrets. Got a little reissue of that one. It's a good record. I love the Syd Barrett stuff. The Jug Band Blues is the Syd Barrett song on here. This is a band by the Paupers called Ellis Island. Very like psychedelic garage rock, very fuzzed out. Got some good guitar jams on it. And there was this Dr. John record on Springboard. I found it at a yard sale for, I don't know, a couple cents maybe. It sounds like the early 60s because apparently it is from the early 60s. Evidently, Springboard Records was known for kind of like finding ways to get recordings of famous artists from before they were famous. Kind of like, almost kind of like demos, but man, sounds like early 60s doo-wop soul, but with that New Orleans kind of flavor to it. The Poppy Family, featuring Susan Jacks, who is the sister of Terry Jacks, who had a big hit in the 70s called Seasons in the Sun. But this one is from like 68, 69, Canadian rock, like very psychedelic. They get kind of out there. And then I got a, maybe it's the second press of Moby Grape's debut album. Initially, like this guy on the washboard here had extended his middle finger, but they edited that out of this. And I think this is literally like the second press from like 69, 70 or so. It's got that gold and red Columbia label. But Skip Spence is in this band. He was kind of like one of those mad geniuses. And out of all the early San Francisco Psych records, I think this probably has to be my favorite. It's so good. The songs are so short. If you haven't heard anything off of this record, go listen to Omaha. And then, oh man, Hey Joe by The Leaves. It was a very folky record. They covered Hey Joe before a lot of other people did. Pretty sure they did it before Hendrix did it. I think this is some kind of like a German reissue of this album. You know, it's like a pretty like solid piece of California folky psychedelic rock.